Hey, welcome to Watch Complications. I'm Brian. Thanks for taking some time clicking on whatever link led you here to join me for this review video. No matter how you got here, if you like what you see, consider hitting the subscribe button. Maybe even become a member, help support the channel and stuff going on here. We'll plug a few things here and there, but what I want to say right up front is this is a unique, a different type of watch review than what I normally have on my channel. I cover watchmaking stuff and watch reviews typically of mechanical watches, but I also throw in quartz, battery power watches sometimes, but this is in a whole different space. I am so weirdly excited for this video because I was individually contacted. Now, sometimes I get messages from companies saying, hey, Brian, you want to do a review for this particular watch? This is the first time where I've ever been contacted for a company that really doesn't have much of a presence out there. It's brand new, it's coming to Kickstarter. I'll put the date in the description below and link to the Kickstarter campaign when it becomes available. But I was contacted and asked to do the review. There's only a limited number of samples to be essentially the reviewer for this watch, where other bigger channels, and I guess, what's a big channel, right? I've got right now around like 16,000 subscribers, going on 17,000. So in the watch world, it's big for a niche world, but there are bigger channels out there. They thought that my type of review with a technical focus and the type of audience that watches my channel is the prime target for this kind of a watch and review. It is a blend of old and new tech. We've got LED components from Bulgaria in the 80s and 90s for the LEDs on this watch. The company is called RedCo, and they contacted me, said, we've got a watch coming that's made from some old components, but it's got a modern processor in it. This is not your traditional style smartwatch in any sense of the word, but it's got a 32-bit ARM processor. I'm gonna get to nerd out on a watch that blends with my specialty area in my professional life of teaching and specifically computer architecture. As you go through this review, remember that in the description below are links and a timeline to bounce around. If you don't want certain technical parts of the review, then just skip ahead. But this is gonna give me a chance to really nerd out and talk about electronic components and low-level computer organization sort of topics. But it's also a watch. So I'm just hyped. I'm psyched. I've been wearing this for going on 2 weeks, and I actually really like this watch. It's different, it's unique, it's extremely light. I love it on this rubber strap. We're gonna get into all the details. Can't wait to flip the camera around and get into that. The regular functionality of the watch is you just press it on, you see, okay, it's 1:31 p.m., press it again, our battery's at 92%. And then we've got the date. It's January 24th. For my American friends out there, hey, I'm American, just keep in mind, it's gonna have year, month. Not the way we typically write it down, which would be month, year. And one thing I'll also note, when you power it on, you'll see the seconds blinking here with this little bitty LED. It's center. Again, nice little touch. That's the operation, and there it animates out. Pretty cool. There's other stuff coming on the radar. My next review out, I think, is going to be a comparison of the Christopher Ward moon phase watches, because I have one of the original C1s from 2016, and I have the new Adventuring Dial C1 moon phase to review from Christopher Ward. Looking forward to that. I still have my new Meteorite watch to review, the Tourbillon. So much stuff that I have to do and coming in 2024. I'm also going to do a little bit of reflection video soon, I hope, of 2023 and my most worn watches in 23, and kind of thoughts about what's coming and what I want to accomplish on the channel this coming year. Again, subscribe, stay tuned, lots of cool stuff. All right, so I can't really tell you what the unboxing is going to be like this with the actual Kickstarter. This is a sample. As you're going to see on the back, it says sample. The box had been retaped and reboxed multiple times, but it arrived, and I'm sure will arrive, with some sort of logo branding on the outside of the box. It's going to be a cushioned box of some sort, and then on the inside, the watch was sitting in here. There was plenty of protectors around the bracelet and the case, along with the charger and a link tool to remove links or replace links. I'll show you what those look like a little bit more up close. There is a manual. See, Kickstarter limited. They only have so many LEDs for this,
but I'll go over these instructions in a little bit more detail. Just wanted to give you that big perspective of what arrived to me. I'm still trying to figure out lighting. I've been doing this for years now, and I still can't seem to. I have a small studio. I have a small office where I do this stuff. I'm not a big production or anything here. I'm just a simple watch guy. Got a day-to-day job, sort of doing my thing, but I just want to give you the best content I can. But let's get into the specs for this watch, because I have a lot of pros and cons and thoughts about this. And again, I want to get a little deeper. So let's get into those specs. We've got 38 millimeter diameter, that's side to side, top to bottom. But you can see it's got this style of case that's got a little cushion to it, one might say. I think it's a little bit closer design-wise to what might go along with an integrated bracelet style of watch. It's got an industrial look to it, but it works well with both the bracelet and any straps you would probably want to attach to it. The lug to lug, so this is tip to tip on these not perfect triangles, but triangular sort of corners on the watch case. We got 42 millimeter from lug to lug. For the height, what I saw on the preview Kickstarter was the height from top of case in crystal, which is flat. You can see it's not like a domed crystal or anything. It's a flat crystal across the top. You see there's this protrusion from the back. This is where the lithium battery is sitting on the inside of the case. I think they did their height measurement from the side of that to the top. That's about 9.2. But if you're going with the battery, and this sinks really well into the wrist, so you really don't notice it. It really doesn't add to the height on the wrist. I'll put up wrist shots, of course, to kind of show that. But from top to bottom at the extremes, it's about 11.2. But this is about a 2 millimeter height, and that kind of disappears into the wrist. So it looks pretty thin on the wrist. The lug width, if you're going to put a strap on it, whether you use the bracelet or you get a rubber strap, then you're talking 22 millimeter. As for the weight, this is a really light watch. I'll get to the main reason for that in just a sec. But you can get it on a bracelet or on a rubber strap. And on rubber, I've got a Barton Elite strap on this. It's under 42 grams, so it's 41.76 grams. On the bracelet, it gets a little bit around 96, 97 grams on the bracelet that came with the watch. So it's not too heavy. And again, that comes down to material. The case itself is aluminum 2024H. Aluminum is just generally soft, which is fine. It works really well. It can be machined easily on CNC. It can be easily etched with lasers. That's all well and good. It's a little bit more susceptible to interference, perhaps sometimes. Got, of course, a magnetic adapter charger on the back. I really have no idea how this is going to hold up over time. All I know is at the moment I've worn it around for about 2 weeks. It's light, it feels comfortable on the wrist. I've actually been wearing this 24/7. I've been wearing it through the days, I've been sleeping in it at night, and it's just light, easygoing, and really just out of the way on the wrist. The crystal is sapphire. This is so light as a case because of the aluminum. And so I pull out my diamond selector too. I'll put a link to this in the description below. Let's get this up to about 3. You put a couple fingers on the back here. And let's see, is this actually sapphire? Look at that. It's actually sapphire. You can see on the back, it's etched with sample 1, like way pre-release. You can get something etched on the back. I think they're going to have custom etching if you want. It says 1 of XXX. I mean, time red. This is so pre-release. This might be the most enjoyable Kickstarter review I've done and enjoyed wearing the watch. Like, seriously, I'm going to wear this watch on one of my wrists and probably a mechanical watch on the other. Case back is screws, though. You can see the hex screws in there. There's no crown. There's just a couple of push buttons on the side. About the buttons and the bolts, all the bolts on the back and the push buttons are 304 blued steel. And of course the case is anodized. I think water resistance on this is probably in that 3 ATM category. You know, this is a splash resistant sort of watch. This is not a watch you want to dunk in the water. You don't want to go swimming with it. You don't want it on in the shower. It's just not that sort of watch. This is something you don't want to get wet. And that would be my advice around it. In terms of price, on Kickstarter, there's of course early bird specials and that kind of stuff. So they got some starting at $249, depending on when you get in. It kind of scales up from there. They're placing the retail price at $399. To be honest, if you can get on the Kickstarter, the early bird stuff, this is so worth it compared to, I mean, I love some basic Casio Timex sort of stuff, but for the price, the nostalgia factor, the tech in this, let me kick this on. I just want to show you. So it's 3:49 p.m. I'm going to talk about the different animations and time setting and that stuff, but this has the movement. Like, I usually talk about movements on videos that I do reviews on. The thing is with this has a processor in it, not a movement. It's not quartz. Got a lithium battery in it that's rechargeable, but this is a 32-bit ARM M profile STM microprocessor. This is got a computer in it. The battery is 250 milliamps an hour. So a milliamp is 1,000th of an ampere per hour. Amps are a way of measuring current flow. Essentially, this processor with this 250 milliamp per hour battery, we're talking about a month of charge. So I know I'm used to talking about movements and hertz and beat rates. A lot of mechanical watches are around like 4 hertz, give or take. This is 4 to 32 megahertz. So we're talking millions of oscillations per second, not the mechanical world. It's just a different category. But you know, there's a lot of stuff going on inside of this and on the programmatic side. Let me get through the last few specs before I move on. The strap, we've got this black metal combination you can get, both with the black with the case and the bracelet. You can also get sort of the regular steel polished metal look. You can also get rubber. I got this on the bracelet. I happen to have a 22 millimeter Barton Elite strap, which kind of looks like what they're using, or a company similar to that, for the rubber strap combination. And with the red and black 22 millimeter Barton Elite, it was like, boom, that's the combination I really enjoyed. Because the bracelet's not me, I'll talk about in the pros and cons section. Put on the rubber strap, can wear this all day, every day. All right, so let's get into the pros and cons of this, as I've worn it for about 2 weeks. And as I mentioned, generally I have quite enjoyed it. What's really unique about this watch is that the LED components of the watch, which you can see here for the numbers, are components made from Bulgaria in the 80s and into the 90s, early 90s probably. And apparently one of the people on the team found a box of these in his dad's garage or something. It's like, what do you do with this? Decided to turn it into a watch. And these are good old 7-segment LEDs. And the feet are gold plated. Gold just because it's a really good conductor of electricity. What's inside of these things, the best to my knowledge that I could look up with these particular models in this region, this age, are gallium arsenide. It's got a red resin inside of it, which gives it that red glowing color you can see there. Animation's really cool. Get another LED down here with the AM PM indicator. It's got a lot of cool features to it. It has about a month of power reserve, since we'll use a watch term for that, but the battery will last about 1 month on a charge. And I actually really like the charger setup on this. It's very modern in the sense that it's a regular old USB, which everyone's going to have readily available, and it kind of has that magnetic MagSafe approach. So you can see a couple of magnets here on the sides, the 2 pins, and it just snaps on there really easy and pulls off really easy. Not going to break or bust something on the watch. Funnily enough, I have an LED lamp over the desk for my lighting, and it has a USB port in it. You can see it's got an indicator to let you know that it is being charged. From what my experience is, and I've only charged it once really, is that 1, it doesn't get hot or anything weird like that, but 2, it seemed like it was probably less than an hour of charging, and that's kind of what they advertise in the Kickstarter campaign. So no issues with the charging. I think the way that the charger is done is really slick. I mentioned I quite like the AM PM indicator. When it's on, it means PM. If it's off, it's AM. So again, pretty simple feature there. Animations. There are several different animations you can use or set for when you power it on to look at the time, and also whenever it goes off, and you'll see it sort of fade out in different ways. That's really cool. There is a backlight adjust on the watch. Right now, my backlight is off. There are LEDs around the sides that will turn on if the backlight is set to be on. All of these are really cool features, along with the fact that it is a 32-bit Cortex MO processor. It's the STM32 FO30. I just don't know if it's the 4 version, 6 version, 8 version, 12 version, which is just a scale for how much memory it has and the clock speed. Not going to get into super technical, but I get to nerd out a little bit, right? And I've already mentioned the battery. What's cool is you get about a month charge. Part of that long-lasting battery is the fact that, one, it's a slow-release lithium battery. It doesn't stay on all the time, where the LEDs are powered on. You get to choose when that is, and another one of those cool features is that you can set the timer for how long the display stays on before it shuts off. So big pro list for me. Size and specs right in the wheelhouse for a lot of people. I like the diameter, around 38 millimeter. It's got a good height, fits really well on the wrist, super light because of aluminum, 22 millimeters, so standard lug width. It's got sapphire glass, that's good. I really like the features. I like the nostalgia about it. I like that it's actually not on all the time. I think it's a little bit nerdy. It's kind of interesting as I've gone throughout my couple weeks that every time I wanted to see the time, I have to push the button. That's very different from looking at a traditional analog watch, or even any sort of smart watch or quartz or battery powered watch, an Apple Watch. Is the time sort of on all the time? It's been kind of an interesting change mentally to just be like, I'm not just looking at my wrist and seeing the time instantly, and I kind of just not paid as close of attention to it over the past couple weeks, and that's okay. Kind of just separates you from that stress to some extent, which has actually been kind of nice. Great vacation watch in that sense. I think there are some other good materials like 304 blued steel for the buttons and anodized case, laser engraving. Price is right, and the fact that it has a 32-bit ARM processor is kind of cool. As for the big cons, I don't know how that aluminum 2024H case is going to hold up over time. We'll just see. Worn it for a couple weeks. I've not been really careful with it per se. We'll see what kind of scratches and stuff it picks up or doesn't pick up over time. Right now on the preview for the Kickstarter, it says waterproof. I've told him to use the word water resistant, but this is just a sort of a splash proof sort of a case. I expect it's a 3 ATM. You want to avoid water. That would be my recommendation if you were to get one of these watches. And some people are going to feel like it's a con that you got to push the button to see the time. So far, with my experience with the watch, the biggest con was the metal strap that came with the watch. You get a choice between a rubber strap and the metal strap. This is a common clasp type you'll see on low-end so quartz watches you'll get off of Amazon or AliExpress, those kinds of places. Not super comfortable in terms of the clasp style and design. The links are okay. Push pin tool that came with the watch worked really well at pushing the pins out. See here? And it's got the arrows to let you know what directions to push them out. And they pop in and out really easily. I didn't have to put an extra stand or support underneath of this. Lays in nicely, push in, pop the pins out. Like I said, I think the links look fine. They feel fine. They're not sharp edged like you would get with cheaper watches sometimes. The clasp itself is just a style and a feel and fit that I'm just not a huge fan of, no matter what the watch is. But, you know, it releases nicely. As soon as I put it on the rubber, I was much happier. Now, it looks like on the pictures theirs is very similar to a Barton style strap. I put a Barton on this. Of course, these are only like 20 bucks. Great quality. I like that on the strap there's a notch so that it stays closed on the wrist. The keepers don't move about. Black red looks really nice, obviously. You could also go with the red and the black. Now the bracelet is steel, so the case is aluminum, bracelet steel. You see that they've painted it while it's completely assembled. And, you know, that's just a little detail, but just something to note the way it actually is done. It's a very power efficient, programmable microcontroller, profiled ARM processor, and they've programmed it with quite a few functions that are interesting. They could do more. I don't know if they plan on making other models. This is a limited edition. They only have so many of these LEDs, so they can only make so many of these watches. Eventually that box runs out, and you're not finding these kind of LEDs laying on the street. It's not going to happen. Let's walk through the instructions a little bit, and this will show off a few more of the features. And right before I get into that, just real briefly, I do like the way they've designed the PCB board for the LEDs, that they've left it exposed. It's got this red against the black background with the gray as opposed to like a gold colored soldering. And so I really like that approach. I like the color, the contrast. And if you look at some of the pictures in their development that they've shared on their Kickstarter, again, once it's live, you'll see some of the prototypes for the cases, the prototypes for the boards, and I think they really arrived at a look that's techie, cool, unique, and what's better than that, right? Okay, so I don't know if this little pamphlet is going to change whenever they have the actual launch and then they get to full production and then they move on to finished packaging for Time Red. See, we've got these certain type of indicators. I didn't even look at this yet until I opened this up. I just done research into those particular LED models. I told you I was going to nerd out on this. So I looked up a little bit about this on my own. And yep, it's gallium arsenide compound. It's got a red resin in it. You can see the leads coming off of the LEDs, and there's the two different ones. There's the letters, and then there's the AM PM indicator, which has 6 leads coming off of it. They're super cool. But in order to get LEDs to show up correctly with the right number, let's say like a 1, that involves a type of programming called multiplexing, where you tell which segments to turn on at which moments and intervals. You can have multiple signals. You can have signals mixed into a singular signal, which is what multiplexing is. And I could go really detailed with that. That's just my world, but I'm throwing up some images, I know, to kind of give visuals around what goes into making something like an LED work on. So like a 7 turns on or an 8 turns on up amongst these 7 segments per the 4 LEDs. And then you've got the AM PM indicator. So the types of things these old indicators would have been put in are things like segment displays, various measuring equipment, automation devices, things of the 1900s. So here's all the features that it has, the things that they really want to highlight. Obviously, time and date. I mentioned the adjustable backlight. We got a battery level, stopwatch, the magnetic connector. So some of the things in here are the features of the watch in terms of functionality. Some of them are just the design characteristics, like the magnetic connector, splash resist. They've got this right. I hope they put that on the Kickstarter. Metal case, again, aluminum, month-long battery. Then there's timer and stopwatch, different indicators. Time format, you can choose between 12 and 24 hours. So kind of things you would typically see on a quartz-powered watch. And then animations, that's fun stuff. The adjustable sleep delay, that's how long the LEDs will stay on before they animate off, so how long the time stays on where you can visually see it. And adjustable brightness. So there's quite a bit in here. I don't know if they're going to program any more, maybe not, but that's got that going on. But right now, one thing I would point out is when you look at this diagram, this has got things numbered so you can see what they are down here. But whenever you get to, like, say, button 3 here, button 4, so the 2 buttons, is on the flip side, they're going to call it button 1, number 1, and button number 2. So let's flip it around. See Kickstarter Limited. And then there's this layout that walks you through time setup, stopwatch setup. And it took me a couple minutes to get through it the first time. And then it was a little easier, like many things you do with tech. So what you really got to pay attention to is what button we're pressing, button 1 or button 2, and whether you're doing a short press or a long press. Short press is just tapping it on and off. Long press is holding it down for a second or 2. Real simple setup instructions for this to start is hit button 1 short press to turn the time on, and then whether you long press button 2 gets you into the time setup, long press button 1. Button 1's the top, button 2's the bottom. So you want to do time setup, short press to turn on, then long press number 2. If you want to get into watch setup, which has your backlights, animations, sleep delay, auto correction, all that kind of stuff, then you do a short press of 1 and then a long press of 1, and that gets you into this watch setup down here. So right now the backlight is off, for example, and let's say I want to turn it so the backlight's on. I want to show you that feature. So what we'll do is a short press of button 1 and then button 1 long press. So short press, that powers it on, long press, and now we get to our backlight setup. Now notice if I hit button 2 long press, it's going to go to the sleep delay setting, how many seconds. The sleep delay, that's how long it takes before the LEDs turn off. It can be between 3 and 15 seconds, so you can't leave it on all the time. But first let's do backlight. So I'm just going to do a quick press here, and you can see it changed to 1. I'm doing a short press of button 1, and then I could move on. And you can go through the path until you get back out to the end point. Now I'm going to do a button 2 long press just to show you. So here's our sleep. You can see I've got mine currently at 10. I don't want to change that right now. So I'm going to do a button 2 long press. That gets me to animation select. So I'm using currently animation 4. You can change it. There are a few different animations, and That depends on what you want it to look like whenever you turn the thing on and turn the thing off. I'm not going to go through and show you all the possible animations. That would just take too long. But this is the turn on animation, then we've got the sleep animation, and then we've got our brightness mode, and right now there's only one brightness mode. Again, I don't know if that's going to change. We got a brightness level, and then we have out to display the time, which ends that particular setting path. So you really got to pay attention to the setting paths for time setup, watch setup, doing the stopwatch. I'm not going to walk through every single one of these. You can see them here. You can pause the video. You can take a look at what it looks like. It's pretty straightforward once you've done one time. You'll even remember it. One other kind of interesting feature they have in this is a time accuracy correction. So if you have a watch that's like, say, a second or two off, there's a time accuracy correction to basically add or subtract however many seconds to what the current time is set so that it is correct without having to reset everything. So interesting feature. Not sure exactly how useful that is instead of just resetting the time, but you know what? Some people might like that kind of a feature. This is fairly bright if you have the backlight on. I kind of like it both ways, just depends on your personal preference or maybe just how much you want to stand out or be nerdy in the crowd when you turn it on. Time setup, we're going to short press button 1, turn it on, long press 2. So you can see it goes to set. First you set the hour setup. I've already got it set, so it's 1:30 right now. And you can see we got minutes and then days. So today's January 24th. Long press 2 again. Year. You can see those little indicators when you get along, like, oh, set. Okay, we're talking about set time. Why? That means we're going to set the year. I've already got it set at 2024. I'm not going to reset this, so I'm going to move on to the next thing. Correction. You saw the C. I don't want any auto correction right now. Move on to the next thing, and we get our AM or PM. We can switch between 12 and 24. Get back out to the time. We long press button 1. Out. Back out the time. So you can see there's that plate at 6 o'clock, says time red. Got the texture of a typical PCB board. You can see the LEDs and the components on the interior. See the gold leads with the soldered positions. AM PM indicator. Yeah, like, I guess there's not a ton to it, but let's power it on, see what that looks like. The LED's on. Pretty nifty. On the back, the etching's fine. Oh, you can kind of see the texture of the aluminum case. I know the screws are steel. Again, that's one of my big questions, is how this case will hold up, but we'll see. Get a look at the texture there. Rough industrial look overall. Still looks nice. Yeah, just wanted to squeeze in an up close look. See the animation up close going out. It'll be fun. There we go. Cool, eh? All in all, I really love the watch. And actually, people in my family also have seen it. They're like, that's really kind of different. It's cool. So I've got really, other than not liking the bracelet, not knowing how the aluminum case is going to hold up, maybe I could just, at that point, transplant it into a different case that I make. I don't know. Who knows what I'm going to do with it. But I'm going to wear it for this year, see how it goes, maybe do a check-in in a year, and let you know how I feel about it. And if you want to check in sooner, always feel free to make a comment below and ask. Tell me what you think about this watch. Jump in those comments. Any kind of thoughts are welcome. I've really enjoyed having this watch. Thank you to RedCo for letting me review this Time Red watch. It's actually been a pleasure, something different, out of the ordinary. I appreciate that. I wish them the best of luck with the Kickstarter. I hope it gets funded and other people can enjoy this watch, and we'll see how they do over time. So let's check out. I weirdly really love this watch. And I don't know if weird is the right word. I've just really enjoyed having this sort of techie style watch on my wrist. I do not like smart watches. I may have mentioned that earlier in the video, and I'm not about all the apps and notifications and connectedness of techie watches. I love me a good quartz watch. One of my most worn in 23 continues to be, it's my kind of, when I'm doing work watch, my Casio MRW 200H. Love that watch. Got to have a good quartz in the box. But if I'm going tech, this is what I love. Like, seriously, this is such a cool, different, unique approach to a watch on the wrist. And I still have this old Timex. Again, eBay was new. Apple was just started to be re-envisioned after Steve Jobs came back. And they had the Blueberry iMac. And
I still have that version of the clock on my desk. This gives me that same sense of nostalgia and love, and I'm eating it up. It's light, it's super comfortable, particularly on a rubber strap, and I recommend it if you want to get a piece of something that's just different. How well it's going to hold up over time, again, like I mentioned, not really sure, almost doesn't matter. I'm going to enjoy this while I have it, while it's on my wrist. I look forward to just having it as an option that I can put on the wrist, or at least one of my wrists, as time goes forward. Thanks so much for joining me, everybody. I hope you got something out of this review, even if it got a little bit technical at certain points. And if you want one of these, well, hit the Kickstarter. Look at the description below, links to my website and any other information I felt like including. Thank you, seriously, thank you for checking out the video. And if you stuck this long, extra credit. I'm Brian, I'm out.